Hey, what's up, guys? It's Cloud Breezy. I just want to make a video on how to improve at being ADC in Season 7. And yes, I know it sucks being an ADC this season, but it's still not impossible to climb, and I'm going to share some tips with you on how to do that. Alright, tip number one is map awareness. This actually does not just only apply to ADC roles, it could apply to all roles. So basically, the first point I want to touch on is about mapping out the jungler's path. Now, the reason that's important is so you know where he starts and where his first gank is going to be at. So, let's say if you're playing ADC and you're leashing your jungler, which started blue. If you notice that your lane, opposite lane opponents, doesn't come to lane when you get to lane, then that means the enemy jungler started red side. And it could also be vice versa. So if you notice that the enemy ADC came late to your lane, then obviously you started bot side. So if they came before you, or they showed up on the map right away, that means that the jungle started top side. And the first gank that's gonna happen is in the bot lane. 9 times out of 10. It also depends on the jungle path, but we'll get into that into another video. Okay, now second point about map awareness is you got to check the mid laner's roams. That's actually a really key point of the swing in the game. Whether it's your mid laner coming in for a gank or it's for the enemy mid laner coming in for a gank. The second you don't see him, you ping for the mid laner. Alright, another little point that I want to talk about for map awareness would be the top laner's teleport. Because been lots of times that I've seen, lots of players not notice when they go on cooldown, so they don't want to be more aggressive or whatever. And it kind of sucks if you can get a kill, but you don't want to because you're scared because they're gonna TP. So if you can't keep track of it, because I know it's a lot to keep track of all at once, you can go ahead and just send a little message to your top laner. Hey, can you ping every time that he TPs, or type it in chat or let me know some sorts of way. And most of the time, they're willing to do it since everyone that joins the game obviously wants to win just as bad as you do. So you probably shouldn't have much issue, or your top laner shouldn't have an issue of trying to ping for you. So overall, map awareness is really, really important. Again, it's not just as an ADC, but in all roles, it's very, very important to learn this aspect, like part of the game. That's why there's a map. Trust me, you guys can get away with so much just by looking at the map. Let's say if you guys are trying to group push mid and you see someone trying to split push bot, pick a fight mid. There's 4 people versus 5. You guys are gonna end up winning the fight. So just make sure you guys look at your maps at all times. Try to understand it the best way you can. Alright guys, tip number 2 is creep score. CS is very, very important in the game because obviously that's what gives you your gold. If you can out CS your opponent, you're basically gonna win your lane. So just if you guys didn't know, perfect CS at 5 minutes is 38 to 40. 40 being the maximum number of CS that can come to your lane as an ADC, obviously. You should know how and when to push the wave or freeze it. Because sometimes if you're poking them down a lot, they can't get a CS. Why are you gonna push it? Keep it where you're at so you can get as much as you can get, and you're basically starving them out until the enemy jungler has to come and gank you so they can help them. And that's really, really good for you. Pushing the lane as well. Sometimes you're trying to bag. You want to push the wave. Don't leave it where you're at. Even if you guys just had a fight and you're super low, sometimes it's okay to risk it to push it to the tower. So when you get back, it'll be in the middle or closer to your turret. So you won't have much of an issue trying to CS once you get back. Also, you got to realize that sometimes it's okay to take CS and sometimes you shouldn't take the CS because it's not worth the harass you're going to get. Vice versa as well. And we'll go ahead and cover that in the next step, when it's okay to take a CS and when it's not okay to take a CS, because that's a whole different aspect part of the game. It's not just last hitting, it's also trading and when to harass and what's the proper way to do it. Alright guys, tip number 3 is trading. So trading as an ADC is very important because it helps to win your lane. And sometimes, your support isn't very good, or they don't really know how to trade, so you have to do the trading sometimes, which is okay because it's better to know how than not to know. So you gotta understand when to trade properly. One of the best and smartest ways is by looking at their CS count. I know you're focusing on yours, but you can look on theirs as well. All right, no one wants to miss getting their candy minion from the wave, obviously. So let's say if the enemy champion sees their candy minion very low, they're gonna try and get it. So watch them as they try to get it, and if once they go for it, it's free harass because they're gonna auto attack the minion, and you're gonna auto attack them. It's very complicated at first, but you'll get the hang of it. The more games you play. So once you kind of figure out harassing, another part of training is when you're getting a gank from your jungler or when someone's trying to gank you. So always look at the map, just like in tip number one, I believe, to see where the enemy jungle is at. So let's say if you saw him topside, or if he's topside right now, go in and try to get some trades, because there's no way they can contest you, or vice versa. Also, when you're not obligated to go in when your jungler goes in, you guys should know that. So if you have 3 minions and your enemy has like 6 minions on the line, and your jungler comes in for a gank, and you feel like it's not a good gank, because obviously minions do damage as well. So if you only have 3 and you're taking damage from 6 minions, that might be like a travesty. You guys might lose that little fight, even if it's a 3v2. So you're never obligated to go in when the jungler goes in. You can ping them back if you have a low minion wave or whatever. Just keep track of, your minions when that's happening too. Alright, tip number 4 is items. This is kind of a vague concept. Everyone can look up, at op.gg or, whatever other site you guys use, a bit like the item builds. That's not hard to do, but you got to know when to build the right item and, the appropriate times to do it. Especially as an ADC, you guys are constantly getting a lot of gold because you're basically just farming to mid game or to the late game, and you're gonna have to buy some big items. So, okay, so just for an example, let's look at Ashe. Everyone knows that character. So Ashe, she goes Infinity Edge, Hurricane, and I guess right now Black Cleaver. So obviously, when you're getting your gold, you're not just gonna go ahead and full buy your Infinity Edge. What a lot of people do is buy the BF sword and then buy the Hurricane. But also, it depends what's happening in your lane, and what's the correct time to do that. Now it's not bad just to full out buy Infinity Edge, but sometimes it's helpful to just get the BF sword, which gives you some attack damage, and then full on building your Hurricane. It depends what kind of play style you're trying to go for that game. You're trying to take down birds fast, or trying to team fight, trying to take takes down fast, and this also applies for non ADC things as well. So if you're going tank and there's no one with AP damage, don't build any MR, even if it's in the build order. Check your opponents, check what items they're building ahead of time, or so you can get like a last whisper or whatever. Just keep track of what items they're building. You got to know what items to build at one time. And if you guys are interested or had any questions, you guys can go ahead and put it down in the comments. Alright guys, tip number 5 is game knowledge. So some parts of game knowledge, following up on a gank, when to dive, items, there's a bunch of things for game knowledge. I just want to touch on about 3. So I briefly touched on when to follow up on a gank, because you're never obligated to follow up on a gank, no matter if they rage at you or whatever. So sometimes it's a bad gank and you don't have to go in. And picking from one or the other, whether it's bad or good, sometimes it's gonna be hard. But it's a way to figure that out is playing more games and seeing what works for you. Also, when to dive. So it's possible to dive even as an ADC, even if you're not really tanky. So, but it's a little different. So you got heal and flash. If you really want to get that first blood gold, which is sometimes worth it, and they're really low, try diving them. You don't have to do it with your support, but it's better if they go in first and take a couple of shots. But you have heal and flash. Try some stuff out. You don't know your limits until you try them. So also, part of game knowledge is taking small victories. Whether it's summoners like the enemy's flash, exhaust, heal, or teleport, or even them using their pots. A pot can actually save your life or from like a gank, it can, or Deathfire's touch, or a lot of things, You don't always have to go full on in every single time. Take small victories, because small victories can lead up to a big victory, if you get enough small victories. So, don't always think that, oh, it was a failed gank. It's never a failed gank, but sometimes it is a bad gank. Anyways, guys, if you enjoyed, please subscribe, and if any feedback would be wonderful, whether it's negative or positive. Any criticism, go ahead and leave it down in the comment section below. And thank you for watching.